The Glycerin Max was one of my favorite Max cushion shoes of 2024, and it was also one of my favorite shoes that Brooks had ever made. So how does a company like Brooks follow up on such success? This is the Glycerin Max 2. It's time to take it for a run. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today I want to talk to you guys about the Brooks Glycerin Max 2. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that was sent to me for the purpose of review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their brand in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Brooks Glycerin Max 2, and let's start with the specs. This is a tall shoe, 45 millimeters of stack height in the heel with a 6 millimeter drop, means we have plenty of stack height in the forefoot, 39 millimeters of Brooks DNA tuned. That is their dual density supercritical midsole foam system, where we've got a softer material for the landings and then a slightly more firm and responsive material in this yellow stuff for fast push off. And they've done a lot of decorating on this shoe, which I think looks really nice. Some very intricate touches, which I'm not really sure from a manufacturing perspective how they're doing this, but it looks great. There's all these little cutouts. This whole thing looks very much like a land shark, which is how the first one looked as well. But it's like they've almost got gills on the side of the midsole here. And yeah, part of it's painted this kind of bluish color, sea green maybe color. And then in those gills that they've cut into the side of the shoe, you could see to the yellow foam on the inside. I think it's a really fantastic touch. It looks great. And that's the only thing that's in the midsole of the shoe, just that dual density supercritical nitro foam system. Now, on the upper, we have a very similar upper to what we saw last year in the original Glycerin Max. And we've got little half cutouts through the sides of the mesh here that, to me, on the upper, it looks kind of like it's trying to evoke this sense that this is an uncontrollable evolution of the glycerin, kind of like a werewolf with ripped clothing is kind of the impression that I'm getting, or maybe I've been staring at this shoe just a little bit too long. But it's a very comfortable upper. I went true to size in this one, and that worked out really well for me. The last one also, I thought, felt really great. The two shoes feel like they fit very similarly, but there are some subtle differences. I'm not sure, but it feels like the tongue got just a little bit shorter in the Glycerin Max 2. And throughout the heel cup, there's still a lot of padding back here, but it feels like they've been a little bit more restrained this year than last year, which is something that I appreciate. There is still a very large Brooks logo on this one, but I feel like it's not quite as nice and ornate as the last one. With the first one, they were designing a big spruce goose type of a shoe, and for certain things, even if they didn't quite make a lot of sense, they just went big and bold with it, and the Brooks logo was exactly that on the first version, and I kind of really loved it. This year, we've got some notes of the same kind of fancy Brooks logo, but this one just looks kind of big, and it doesn't quite have that sense of bespokeness or fanciness to it, which I'm kind of missing from last year's version. Moving to the outsole, we have some exposed foam, but we've got a lot of rubber where they have it. I'm not sure if it's just the pattern that they're using, but it seems to me and it feels to me this year that there's just a little bit more rubber in the areas where there is rubber on this one, indicating that this is going to be a highly durable shoe. Overall, we've got a nice nip tuck update in terms of what we're seeing on paper and in hand as far as the updates to the Glycerin Max 2. But this shoe does come in heavier than last year. My reference size is weighing it at a full 11 ounces or 312 grams. Now that we talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what this shoe is like on the road. And I think the difficulty in talking about the Glycerin Max 2 is that the Glycerin Max 1 was, in my mind, such a big hit and such a big success. It's a huge release for Brooks, in my opinion, and it casts a very large shadow. And it's hard to talk about the Glycerin Max 2 in and of itself. I constantly find myself comparing it to the Glycerin Max version 1. And for those of you who, like me, love the Glycerin Max 1 because it was such a refreshing change from what Brooks had been giving us, and because it was so different and so unique, I think that you're gonna find the Glycerin Max 2 to be a little bit disappointing. But the thing is, The more I think about it and the more I run in the Glycerin Max, it is a really good max cushion shoe. The only problem with it seems to be that it is the unfortunate successor to the Glycerin Max 1. And I think the way that Brooks has changed it from version 1 to version 2 doesn't help things either, because it feels like a big step backwards. So what do I mean by all that? This is a big, cushy, comfortable max cushion shoe, and there is a lot of comfort and softness when your foot is landing in it and hitting the ground. But there is an increased sense of density to this midsole foam. It's not quite as squishy as it was last year. And especially I'm feeling the difference in the forefoot. There was a very unique sense of mushiness in the forefoot that was really pleasant, with a soft decompression that kind of gently popped you out of the compression of that foam in a cadence that I thought felt very relaxing, felt very luxurious when it comes to putting on the shoe for a recovery run. Before the update, it's like someone looked at the Glycerin Max 1 and tried to trim out all the fat to give us a leaner, meaner Glycerin Max 2, but it turned out it was all the fat that was all the delicious stuff that we liked about the first version. So they've taken away all the wonderful eccentricity of the first shoe to give us a second shoe that is a lot more no nonsense and a little bit more boring. The same thing happened to the upper. It feels like it's been edited in a very sensible way, but the thing that I liked about the Glycerin Max 1 is that it wasn't sensible. It was ostentatious. It was over the top. And this is kind of very much the running shoe version of khakis and a polo. But even though I've been bashing this shoe and talking about how much I don't like it compared to the original version, let me tell you about why I do think that this is actually a pretty good max cushion shoe. I do feel like there is a lot of softness and stability in the heel without it feeling like a stability shoe. So it's wide enough that the base is nice and stable, but they haven't done a ton to make it feel like there's like a chunk of extra density under this part of the arch. So I appreciate that. And there is a pleasant amount of softness and compression when my foot does hit the ground. Not as nice as last year, but it's still a really nice sense of compression. I think the 6mm drop on the shoe is an excellent choice for the way that the foams are set up in this midsole. And overall, it's a very comfy package that ends up feeling lighter than it looks, and it feels on foot lighter than the scale would indicate. I feel like this is a shoe that is eager to do a lot of daily training work as well as recovery work, and I do think that if this shoe were like half an ounce lighter, it'd be a great speedy long run option. Now let's wrap up this video by going over the buy guide, and we'll also discuss some of the alternatives. The Glycerin Max 2 is a comfy and cushioned max cushion shoe that's going to be great for daily training, recovery runs, and long runs alike. If you've been loving the Ghost or the Glycerin and are wanting something that's going to be extra comfy and extra plush, the Glycerin Max 2 is a shoe that I think is one you should be looking at. However, this shoe retails at $200, which is the same price it was last year, so kudos to Brooks for not inflating the price year over year. But for me, in terms of what this shoe is delivering, it's a good max cushion shoe. I just don't know that it's a $200 max cushion shoe. If you're looking to save a couple of bucks, the Glycerin Max 1 is available for $150 now, and I think that's an excellent price for what you're getting with that shoe. And if you've been loving the Glycerin Max 1 and want more of that same feeling and don't want to go to the updated or reversion to Glycerin Max 2, pick up extra pairs of the Glycerin Max 1 while you can. But die-hard Brooks fans need to be careful. A lot of you guys didn't love the Glycerin Max 1, so it's not a shoe that I've been recommending to you. Now let's take a look at some of the alternatives that are out there on the market to see how the $200 of the Glycerin Max 2 stacks up. Now the first shoe that I think about when I was thinking about the Glycerin Max 2 comes from Puma, and this is the MagMax. This is MagMax version 1. MagMax version 2 is available now, and I still haven't been able to get my hands on a pair of these. I just talked to Puma, they're sending them to me now, so I'll have them shortly, but in the meantime, let's talk about the MagMax version 1. I feel like these two shoes are trying to do very similar things. They're trying to be really tall, really comfortable max cushion shoes, and the MagMax 1, I think is trying to be more of a long run shoe because it's very light, especially for how big this shoe is. It looks as big as the Glycerin Max 2, but it feels a lot lighter. It runs like a much lighter shoe. There's a lot less padding in this shoe as well. So that tells you that they're not necessarily going for the ultra cushion experience in the MagMax version 1 like they are going for that in the Glycerin Max 2. I think the way that I would pick between these two shoes, if you're looking for a jumbo tall max cushion experience, if you want something that's a little bit more stable, a little bit more like the Brooks you already love, go with the Glycerin Max 2. If you're looking for something that is much more modern, has a little bit more pop while also being tall and cushioned, go with the Puma MagMax version 1. That is normally retailing for $180, but it's now available for $140, and that is a steal. Now, the other shoe that I think we should consider when looking at the Glycerin Max 2 comes from Mizuno, and this is the Neo Vista version 2. Now, these two shoes also are lining up, I think, fairly well. They're using two different kinds of foam in this shoe, although they're putting them together slightly differently than the way they are in the Brooks. But there is a nitro foam layer and then an EVA layer. And then there is a plate in this shoe, but it's not a carbon fiber plate. It's a plastic plate that is intended to keep these materials from getting too mushy. And while I think that it does a decent job of that, and it does it without making the shoe feel uncomfortable, as Mizuno wave plates can frequently be uncomfortable for me, I think that this shoe ends up being a little bit too much on the mushy side. So it's a very, very soft shoe that I like pretty much only for recovery runs. But when I want a shoe like the Neo Vista 2, I'm very happy to have one. The knit upper is also very comfortable and not a lot of extra puffy padding around the tongue and on the heel cup. So it's a very comfy shoe, but I feel like its use case is a little bit more limited. That shoe also retails for $200, and it looks like that shoe is still retailing for $200. And the way that I would choose between these two shoes is if you want something that's really mushy and soft, or if you want something that's a little bit more dense. That's how I would pick between those two. So those are my thoughts on the Glycerin Max 2. By itself, it's a good max cushion shoe, a very good max cushion shoe, but it lives still in the shadow of its predecessor, the Glycerin Max 1, and so that makes it a bit of a disappointment for me. If you have any other questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today, put it in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live streams I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?